Namaskar. I'm Satish Jha from Boston, and this is my second conversation with you in the new year. I've been hearing a lot about a lot of rich people leaving India. In 1984, I left for the US. For me, it was I was pushed to come to the US. Before that, growing up in the kind of milieu where Jayaprakash Narayan was the eldest of us all, and I used to walk with him those days, and I learned a lot from him. In 1971, I got an opportunity to be invited to ISS Hague and Sussex and something in Australia, and I declined. And that was, I was still a teenager, and I had also opportunities which came very easy to me, and I felt going overseas was not the best thing to do. India was a great country. I did not see anything beyond India, and I was as patriotic, as full of greatness of India as one could be at that age. And for me, it was important that my nation became the West. And then I started Jansatta in 1983. And one day, some personal opportunities led to a situation where I had to concede, okay, I will go to the US. And I had the opportunity to get a fellowship, which is normally for the civil servants or other public service people. In this case, they finally considered journalism was no less public service, and I got accepted. I felt my quality of life was much better in India because the conversations we had, I grew up in the heady days of 70s when India was trying to become a great nation with all the values the Constitution allowed us at that point in time, uh, social development, socialism, secularism, everybody had to be developed, they had to be given opportunities. We were a nation of 45 crores at that time. Now we've added a billion people since then. That's about 40 years, a billion people. Amazing performance on population at least. Since then, when I came to US, I continued to see through the Indian eyes. But towards the end, I realized there's something about America which attracts everyone. You don't feel like you belong to a country which is not yours. You could be as critical of America as you would be of your own country. And that time, India, you could be critical of India at that point in time. So when I went back, something very interesting happened. In Indian Express building, on the top, there was a company called MTC. So I went to just say hello to the chairman. People I knew were either because of being a journalist, they were union ministers, secretaries, chairman of corporations, journalists, academic, artists. Whenever I met someone, they said, "You came back, you returned. How could you do that?" So basically, there was a disapproval in my coming back to the country. And I thought I had no choice but to be in my country. I did not accept any opportunity that came my way in the US. And here I was being questioned for coming back. From there, today, there are 5 million Indians in America, which is about 1.5% of American population. About 1 million Indians are illegal in America. That's more important data for me, because if every year over a period of 50 years, 10,000 people come, 10,000 into 10 is 100,000, into 5 is 500,000. And if you keep adding that everybody who comes brings in so many people, so in 50 years, 5 million people could probably be seen as a possibility. Because once Sam Pitroda actually used to be very proud of saying and talking about it, he said he brought 64 members of his family to America. Just imagine people who came in the 60s and 70s, that was their target, to bring as many of their relations to America as they could probably do, not for everyone, but many of them who felt socially. So that was the attraction for those who did not see a future in India at that point in time. But I had a great future in India. I did not have to. Then I saw who comes from India, the people who do not see a future for themselves there. Soon after, I'll be chairman of a company and I will meet many businessmen, and they will tell me their children don't want to come back from America. That was another phase. And some people told me their children don't want to go to America because they had so much there. Some people had this problem, their children, despite so much, they didn't want to come back. Even today you will find many homes, very pricey homes, affluent homes in India, in Delhi, in golf links. They will be found vacant or Vasant Vihar because children who left for the US didn't come back. But things began changing when I went to my Harvard class in 1984-85. Say in one program that I was part of, there were only seven of us, and seven included five Chinese, one Korean, and one me, and that was it. And we had three professors, and we had conversations every week, twice for 2 hours each. So this was the composition. All the Chinese went back because they came through the state assistance. Korean went back, and I also went back. So that was the nature of people who came to study in India from China, Korea, and India. And these three countries in my equation are always important because never forget, we began around $50 in 1947, and today India is at $2,500, China is 20,000, and Korea is 50,000. And we should always remember this context of our own performance. Anyway, so the question is, who was coming to the US? They were coming from IITs. They were good students. And 80% of IIT population came to the US, and thus populating this current generation of leadership of technology companies. They are the ones who became entrepreneurs. Surprisingly, IIMs produce fewer entrepreneurs than IIT guys because IIMs prepare you to do a good job as a corporate reacher. So people went for jobs. Well, IIT gave them technological prowess, technological skills, and ability to learn. And when they came to the US, they went to the next program for MS in some areas, etc. Because everyone who came here to the US, they got acclimatized by education. They went to nicer institutions, better institutions. They learned what they had learned at a different level, and that made them who they are today. And the production of the leadership that we have seen from Shantanu Narayan, Adobe, coming all the way to Satya Nadella, the Sundar Pichai, and now everywhere you find the Indians who are leading large corporations in the US. They mostly came from IIT, IIM environment, but IIM was not creating as many entrepreneurs as IIT graduates were. Anyway, so many people came from that environment, and the rest, they went to the second tier, third tier universities. These are ambitious people, and they were adventurous, and they came out. It was not easy, but they came out. Slowly, as India's population grew, as urbanization spread, as middle class became a little more ambitious, they all tried. But in the beginning, meritorious came out. The second flush was of those who could afford, as education became something banks could fund. Then they would take loans and come to the US. And it's easy for them to pay back loan if they had to pay back. But they came to the US because it became possible. But now the challenge is that rich want to leave India. Who are rich? Rich are the people who actually create value. People who go for jobs, they do a job created by them, for people who actually are rich, who can create entrepreneurs. Those who are entrepreneurs, they can create businesses. So businesses decide who will get what kind of job. And a business to continue to grow has to align to the global market. So anything that you see today India is about a $3.5 trillion economy. It means $3,500 billion. Of this, roughly 300, little less than that, comes from information technology. This is handled by 5 billion Indians, including both within India and outside. It was made possible by H-1B visa program. America has many visa programs. America is a country that chooses people from overseas carefully, and from south of America, they find a way to get into America without much qualifications. But anyone who has to fly in typically has better qualifications and or has relations here who sponsor them. So when the rich want to come here, why do they want to come here? They want to come here because if I look at from their point of view, from the point of the rich or those who live here, they look at India. India is a love story. Either you ask no reason. In love, there is no reason to be asking, why do you love someone? That's transactional. So India is a love story for all of us. And when you think in terms of getting out, it doesn't mean you don't love India. It just means that things have become so difficult. And where are the difficult? The difficulty is in politics. Difficulty is in bureaucracy. Difficulties in dealing with infrastructure. Difficulties in dealing with future. what future holds for us. Every bureaucrat today will have a child who is overseas. Every major politician will have children educated here. And unless they want to become politician, they better remain outside. Every businessman has family here, children here, and they will have a home here. But if things are going well, the children will come back. The biggest, don't have to worry about it. The top 500 or 1,000, don't worry about them. They have everything in India. They don't have to live here. They will always live here anyway. Our top industries, I wouldn't name anyone, they all have homes overseas. The top 1,000, they all have homes overseas. Many of them basically are OCIs. They even have foreign passports and function in India. But the next tier, which doesn't have the same level of leverage that they can have two-country life, they would like to migrate out. And that's what's happening. But they are the ones who create, they are the leaders of small businesses. A small business also not so small. You're looking at businesses that go up to 1,000 crore rupees of revenue, about 100 crore rupees of profits. Even they have incentive to get out as a family, because the challenges of being in India are primarily from the corruption. Corruption has never been this high for everything. There was corruption in India, always, because that's a social thing. I used to hear in Mithila or Lucknow or Banaras, what's your external income? That is a legitimate question in our society. If that is legitimate, then obviously corruption is legitimate. Many of my friends in civil services, some of them were caught with so much money, but obviously they're civil servants, nothing happened to them. And as long as you're part of the system, you can do anything, nothing happens to you. So effectively, our system has become so corrosive, so basically the morals have changed, they become so flexible that when it's my brother who's corrupt, then I don't see it as corruption. But if it's my enemy, then obviously that's corruption. So when I do it, it's not corrupt. When you do it, it's corruption. As long as that value system remains, corruption will remain like fresh air. That's a big challenge. So biggest challenge all these small industries face is not just the infrastructure, which is pretty sad. It's dealing with bureaucracy, dealing with government, and the fear of, as soon as you heard of a chief minister of a certain state who recently passed away, then jokes came about that one day he went to the house of a businessman and he gave him little money, about a few lakh rupees. He wasn't very happy with it. And next day, the trenches were dug around his headquarters, and until he gave 100 times as much, nothing changed. So that's the kind of, and of course, the leader of the government was saying, no, there's no issue at all. But until the money was given, issues remained and issues disappeared. So they have figured out a language of corruption is so amazing. To be doing a business, if how to corrupt the system becomes a legitimate requirement, then some people are going to run away. Majority will run away, because not everybody can be someone who can give 1,000 crore rupees to PM Care Fund or electoral bonds when their losses are 500 crore rupees. So you can imagine the kind of questions keep coming up. So I think primarily it's corruption much more than just infrastructure. Of course, infrastructure is poor. Just because you create highways will not make people stay. Yes, they have given people at a lower level who can't get out, who are very happy with what little they have, they will remain there. But any with aspirations, either in technology, and I'll give example of my younger brother. My two brothers both went to IIT, one to IIT Delhi, one to IIT Kanpur. So the one who went to IIT Kanpur did PhD from Purdue, and when Jamshid Irani apparently invited him for a position of deputy general manager at 26 years of age in Tisco, and he said, I'm probably getting a 15 years advantage if I was in India, but what will happen to my mind? I need a place where my mind can be fed or nurtured or has an ecosystem to remain, engaged. And so he has 50, 60 patents. He came back for that reason. So people come back for many reasons, but the biggest reason is corruption in India. Biggest reason is the way people treat you, the way power basically mistreats its citizens. Lack of respect for being a citizen. That is the biggest challenge that I face. I feel Indian face, particularly those who are capable of getting out. And that's what's leading to about a couple of 100,000 people leaving India every year. And these are the people who are well off. But I would like to say something very, very simple, that let's not forget that India has always been full of potential, and India has always been seen as a great example of democracy. Our biggest icon is Mahatma Gandhi. Nehru gave us a platform to stand on. The institutions he built, and in education, in public sector, etc., they became the platform on which India developed. What From 1991, when we basically realized that socialism could go so far and no further, and we opened our doors. Since then, whatever has happened in India is a miracle story. But let's also not forget, only 7-8% of Indians live a life that normally middle class, the lower middle class of the world lives in. 92% of Indians live life of sub-Saharan Africa. Our per capita income for 92% is less than $1,000. It's probably around 60, 70,000 rupees per annum. In that environment, if growth doesn't take place, if we don't support the people, the very people who are getting out, the hope will also be compromised. So in order not to compromise the hope, we have to make sure at least they should start a commission. What is happening to us? Once I remember, and I like to share that Abid Hussain was a very, very well-spoken secretary of his times, became Commerce Secretary, Ambassador to US. And he was obviously, as Secretary, Mrs. Gandhi used to talk to him. So one day, as he narrated to me, Mrs. Gandhi asked him, Abid, what am I hearing about brain drain? And he's a very witty man. He said, Madam, the brain overseas, brain drain is better than brain in the drain. That was his point. So brain drain was basically a phenomena that got understood because of IITs, the way they were responding at that point in time. 80% IITians were getting out. Now what's happening is these people who are coming out, they will create business outside. So what you're losing out is a talent to create businesses in the country. And that India can ill afford. So I think the government should take note of it and try to understand what is happening. The clean government, good governance is very, very essential for these people to stay back. Good governance, good infrastructure. I mean, you should be able to stand up as a citizen with respect without having to basically kowtow and worry about which palms to grease. So if we can think along those lines, we'll need that to become a great nation. With that, I take your leave for today. Thank you very much. Namaskar.